Welcome to the Brasileiro podcast, and this episode's about the Confederation Cup Squad. Felipao announced a squad yesterday, and I actually was quite happy with the squad in some forms. But I'll go position by position on what I thought. Okay, let's look at the goalkeepers. Julio Cesar, which we're pretty much going to go with him to the Confederation Cups and to the World Cup. We just have to accept that. Sometimes I think he's over the hill, but honestly, he had a pretty decent season with a struggling QPR team, and I think he's a good player. But I think he should be challenged for his position. Then you got Jefferson from Botafogo, who's always a solid goalkeeper, one of the best goalkeepers in the Brazilian league. Then you got Thiago Cavallari from Fluminense, and he's a good goalkeeper too. A lot of people are saying he should be the starter, but he's made quite a few gaffes in the last weeks. But I think he's a solid player. And my whole point about the goalkeeper position, there should be competition, man. Julio Cesar shouldn't walk away with this job. That's my whole point. But I like Felipao's selections there. No complaints from me. Now let's go to center back. Thiago Silva, of course, best center back in the world in my opinion. Javier from Atletico Mineiro. A lot of people are high on him in Brazil, me included. I think he's good. He's composed on the ball. He can score in a header. He might be a little bit slow and clumsy for people, but honestly, I think he makes up for it with his pure smartness, and I don't think they're as slow as people say he is, and I like his positioning. Then you got David Luiz, who I don't like, but you can't discount his talent. And we have to think that he's going to be tried as a defensive midfielder for this team. That's what I think. He's been playing it for Chelsea a lot lately, and he's been pretty good at it. I got to give the kid credit. I think he's going to be tried out in the midfield by Felipao. So I like that inclusion due to the fact that he could be the defensive midfielder this team needs. Then you got Dante from Bayern Munich, fresh off winning the German league and going to the Champions League final against Borussia Dortmund. That should be a great game. And Dante has had a good season, and I'm not the biggest Dante guy, but I did say after the last group of friendlies, I want to see more of him. And I think he's composed on the ball. He's really athletic, so we got to see what we have there. And now at fullbacks, this is a position of contention for everyone. Dani Alves is going to go in 2014 as the World Cup starter, people. We just have to deal with it. I know he has defensive liabilities, but Felipao's going to make that decision, and that's going to be the decision. It's quite obvious to me now, because there's no Rafael from Manchester United in the squad, and Rafael's the only one who can push him. And I honestly think I would go with Rafael above Daniel Alves right now. I just don't like Daniel Alves' performances for the Seleção. And then you got John from he's from Fluminense. He used to play at São Paulo. He's a midfielder. He's a deep lying midfielder, but Felipao's been using him at fullback, and a lot of people think he might even start over Dani Alves. So that's an interesting choice. I like the choice. I like John. He's a good player. I think he can. He's a versatile player. So obviously Felipao recognized that. But at fullback, I don't know. But I'm willing to give it a try, since the Confederation Cup, it really needs to be a tryout session, even though it's a competitive tournament. Then you got Marcelo. He's going to be a clear-cut starter for this team. He's the heart and soul of this team. He's been the best performer for the Seleção over the years. He's going to be a starter. Then you got Felipe Luiz from Atletico Madrid as his cover, and I like that. I'm really comfortable with that side of the fullbacks, but the other side of the fullbacks, I'm not too comfortable with. Now at defensive midfielder, we have Fernando from Grêmio, who has been performing really good. He had a good game in the Libertadores, scored a screecher of a goal, a pure golazo from about 35 feet out to win the game in the Libertadores. Then you got Hernanes from Lazio, and a lot of people view him as an attacking midfielder, but for this team, he needs to be a volante. He needs to be passing deep, he needs to be winning balls, and he needs to be playing defense. And I like Hernanes here because he has the most passing skill out of all these defensive midfielders, and he needs to start. Because one thing I told you guys that Brazil struggles with is the passing from the defensive midfielders. Then you got Luiz Gustavo, who was a bit of a surprise inclusion for me because Felipao didn't include him in his other squads, and he has been on the bench for Bayern Munich. But he is a solid defensive player, so that's not too bad a pick. I didn't like that. I would have picked someone else. I would have picked another attacking midfielder like Osvaldo, or I would have took Fernandinho from Shakhtar Donetsk. Okay, then you got the last defensive midfielder, Paulinho, and Paulinho simply is one of the best volantes in Brazil, the best midfielder in the Brasileiro, in my opinion. Maybe the most consistent player on this team. When you look at his league form, I like the pick. Let's see what he can do at the international football level. It is a bit different, but let's see what he can do. I think he's going to be great, even though he's had some tough games, like his game against England was horrible. Then you got my favorite player at attacking midfielder, Jodson. I've been preaching Jodson for years. I didn't know Felipao was going to take a look at him, but you know what? Jodson deserves to be in the squad. He's a monster. He's been great for Sao Paulo lately. Great touch on the ball. He attacks. He passes. My only question with Jodson is can he play deeper in the midfield and help us with our passing and ball movement? Because for Brazil, we got enough attackers. We need someone who can move the ball and set up the attackers. So that's the question with Jodson. But Jodson's great in the final third. We all know that from his form in Sao Paulo. Well deserved to him. Then you got Oscar. Oscar had a great season at Chelsea. That's undisputable. He's in the squad to stay. Then you got Lucas Moura from PSG, who's had a really good season too. I like the pick. And then you got Bernard. And Bernard over Osvaldo, I didn't, you know, I'm a big Osvaldo fan, but I understand it. I'm not going to knock Felipao over this because Bernard has been killing it for a year. And for people who think Philip Coutinho is better than Bernard, you need to wake up. Philip Coutinho's had 2 months of good form, while Bernard's had a year of phenomenal form. And don't give me that Philip Coutinho's better than any of these attacking midfielders, because he isn't. He's only had 2 good months of form, and I just want to lay that out there. That's ridiculous. But when you look at these attacking midfielders, my only question is, where's Ronaldinho? If you're going to include him in the teams like you have been before, you have to include him in this team because I don't understand the risk-reward with Felipao. Felipao's had Ronaldinho as a staple of these teams in the friendlies, but yeah, he leaves him out for the Confederations Cup. I just don't get it. And I think Ronaldinho would be great off the bench, but Felipao's been using him as a starter, which is just retarded in my opinion, because Ronaldinho doesn't have the legs to go 90 minutes. But I think this is down to Ronaldinho not pressing and not having the legs and maybe the will to be in this team. A lot of people are saying Ronaldinho probably wasn't even upset. I don't know about that. It's hard to look into a man's heart, but I honestly think he wants to be on this team. Now as our attackers and strikers, we got Hulk. I like Hulk off the bench. I really feel like he's a good change of pace. A lot of people maybe didn't think he should have been in the team, but I think he deserves it because he gives you versatility. He can score, he can put in crosses, but he does have his bad games, so maybe that's why he should come off the bench as a change of pace. Leandro Damiao from Inter in Brazil. He didn't have the best year last year, but he's been looking better in the state championships. And you know what? He's a pure number 9. But you know what? I would have took a risk and took Pato instead of him, honestly, because Leandro Damiao really hasn't been in that great a form. Then you got Fred from Fluminense, and Fred is probably going to make this 2014 squad because he's a pure finisher. He's an assassin. He's a killer. He doesn't do much else besides score. But maybe this is what the team needs. Personally, I think we need someone more pressing and who will put in a bigger work rate, but you can't argue with Fred's goal rate. He scored the last 3 games for the Seleção. The guy deserves a look, but he does struggle with injuries, and he has been out for Fluminense for about 25 days, but he finally came back for the Libertadores game against Emelec. So let's keep an eye on Fred. I don't think he's a legit starter yet, but some people think he is. Then you got Neymar, and Neymar's been getting blamed a lot lately for everything, for that friendly against Chile, which, you know, it wasn't his fault, and Felipao only had a day to prepare the squad, and it was a purely domestic squad too, so people made way too big a deal of that. But that's my thoughts on this Seleção roster for the Confederations Cup. I'm really happy with it, actually. Even though I had a few complaints, I gotta say I'm happy with this one. Let me hear your thoughts on it. Thanks for listening.